Irina is. Okay.
Hello, happy Memorial Day. Welcome to the Energy Realities Podcast. My name's Stu Turley, and I'll tell you what, we've got an action-packed show today. Let me introduce our regular panel, and then I'll introduce our star today. Let me start out with the Irina Slav. Irina is in Bulgaria. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you.
Well, you look absolutely wonderful. I love your garden hat behind you, and I bet it's just going to be a glorious day to garden.
Yeah.
All right. Now, coming around the corner, we have Tammy Nemeth. She is the head person over there at the Nemeth Report. We don't know where she is around the world. She's traveling between Canada and the UK all the time. Welcome, Tammy.
Hello, I'm from the UK. Good afternoon and good morning for everybody.
Oh, good. Is it sunny or you're all kind of wrinkled up like a prune?
We are like a prune. We had one sunny day, and that was Saturday, and we did a barbecue. And it's been chucking rain ever since.
What's
How
a barbecue
unusual
in the what's a barbecue in the UK? Is it just charcoal? You'd actually use barbecue sauce?
It's mutton, right?
Oh my gosh, we're Canadian. Of course, we do like a normal charcoal barbecue with steak when we can find it.
Roadkill allowed? It is in Texas.
Oh my gosh, no.
Okay. And then coming to, speaking of Texas, we got the David Blackman. I mean, David is just not the David Blackman. He is an amazing legend in my mind. Welcome, David.
Legend in my mind too. We're the only two, I think.
All
Good morning,
right.
everyone.
Now everybody's got some real concerns with humor, AI, data centers. And I'm telling you, we've got Tom Kirkman. Tom Kirkman and I have known each other for a bit. I've enjoyed following Tom. Tom's been on my podcast a few times, and he and I have to share a few things in common besides good looks. And I tell you what, Tom has got, I believe you had a spike of about 8 million views on LinkedIn just recently. Welcome, Tom, and thank you so much for your time today.
Great to be here. I'm looking forward to this. We'll have fun.
Well, glad you could summarize that. And so, as we go through some,
I'll follow your lead. Don't worry.
So, as we go through some of the AI and the grid, Tom, some of the biggest topics that you cover, you're serious about your oil and gas energy expertise. And then you've been censored so much, and you found a way about. Could you give us a little bit of a lineup of what you found between AI and LinkedIn?
Sure. I poke fun of the AI on LinkedIn constantly. I will call them out. I actually tag the LinkedIn team and the LinkedIn help team. And I'll go back and forth between my totally serious and hard-hitting posts about oil and gas and energy. And I've been writing about this for more than 10 years. That's where actually I met Irina many years ago on the old oil price forum. I've known her for about 10 years now. So I've written about 30,000 posts about oil and gas, international oil and gas in the last decade. I write a lot. I was a moderator on the oil price forum and on the oil pro forum. But lately, in the last year or so, I've shifted over more to climate change and poking fun at AI. And I'll go back and forth on the weekends now for about the last 6 months, and I will write ridiculous, absurdist, surrealist, sarcastic posts about anything under the sun. So I get on a kick on about cows, like electric cows, solar-powered cows, time-traveling ducks, liquefied natural electricity, deep-fried electricity, you name it. Just anything to post, poke fun at this, but I do it generally in a totally serious way. And it's to provoke some critical thinking in the readers, because they have to decide, is this one of his serious posts or is he pulling my leg? And sometimes people actually get confused. So this morning I actually posted a short video about a perpetual motion machine. And I got censored. Only my connections can see it. So a LinkedIn AI has apparently figured out, hey, I'm pulling people's legs, so only my connections can see it. It's not the same as being shadow banned, but It's just they're trying to reduce my connections, but I asked people to repost it, so they did. So it gets outside my network. So the whole thing is to make people laugh at stupid stuff on the weekends because there's so much stress in the world. My view is everyone needs to be able to laugh at silly stuff, and then people pile on in the comments, which is why I write this. They will come up with their own deadpan, absurdist, surrealist comments, and we'll just keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And that gets far more views than my serious posts about oil and gas and energy. So there we go. Go ahead, Stuart. Back over to you.
Tom, I'll tell you what. I absolutely. I'm one of those that I'm on a Tammy Nemeth, Irina Slav, and David Blackman. I'm a stalker of theirs. And yet yours on the weekends, I'm like addicted. I'm sitting in the corner needing coffee. If you, for our podcast listeners, there is a cow plugged into one of the 8 charging stations that the Biden administration has created for cars out of the $5 billion or $8 billion that they did. It's over on the right. But I want to read this. There's 2 other posts here. They're absolutely a hoot. Tom puts out, CNN reports not only will climate change make you poor, it will make you stupid. Holy smokes, Batman. Sorry,
I completely agree with the proposition it'll make you stupid. If you believe anything the proponents of climate change say, it will make you stupid. There's no doubt about that. And if you believe this energy transition is going to succeed, again, it'll make you stupid. So that part of it's actually true. And then the all the stuff coming around the corner. We got to get back to data center and AI here in a second, but we're having too much fun. Camel milk may replace cow milk soon, since camels fart less than cows. This is a family joke. Can I say fart? And camels beauty contest is a real thing too.
This is actually a serious post.
So, Irina, are you going to have any camels on your farm?
No, we don't raise animals. That's too much work for us and too much of, emitting. We can't have that.
I think they would thrive in the Permian Basin. I mean, camels seem perfectly suited for West Texas and the Panhandle.
I think so. Now, okay, when we get into data centers and everything else, there is some significant hypocrisy that this is really pointing out. It seems kind of funny that there is in Texas this past week, they had Wayne Christensen pointing out that the lizards are now endangered, and we're not one lizard.
Yeah.
But yet we can kill the 400 remaining right whales for offshore wind, right? So, let's pick which lizard to kill, and there's bazillions of that lizard around. And then when we go over so the hypocrisy is there. Tammy, you got any ideas on what your concerns are on data centers and AI?
Well, I think we might have had this conversation over email, but Bain had a very interesting kind of podcast interview with a bunch of their analysts, and it's called "How to Feed AI's Hunger for Power." And they're basically saying that they're going to need all of these natural gas power plants in order to power the AI and the data centers, because nuclear can't come online quick enough. And they crunch the numbers showing how unreliable solar wind batteries are for doing AI and data centers, which you need sort of constant energy for, just like our lives, right? But I feel like they're going to prioritize the energy towards AI and data centers to monitor everything we're doing to make sure we're conserving energy properly, and limiting how much energy we have access to in order to ensure that the AI and the data centers have enough to do whatever it is that governments need them to do. And so that's my concern with all of this, is that on the one hand, they're telling us we all have to dial back. We have to conserve energy. We have to have all these devices to make sure we're not using too much energy. And then in the next breath, it's like, oh, we're going to need all this energy for AI and data, which they'll get it first. And the rest of us will be, they'll have load control, which is a euphemism, of course, for rationing or something. So
Right.
that's my concern with all of this.
And then there are all these new rules about emissions from power generation in the US, I mean. And they've got these, limits that the industry is sounding the alarm that it will make building new gas-powered plants almost impossible. So how are they going to square that circle?
Well, they're going to pretend we can feed the need entirely with new solar. Probably not so much wind, but solar mainly, and these battery centers with the 3-hour cycle time. Okay, which is nonsense, abject nonsense, and can't work. Physically impossible for it to work. But you're right. I mean, I interviewed Robert Bryce last week, and he pointed out that just in the last 35 days, the various agencies of the Biden government, the FERC, EPA, and the BLM, have published well over 1 million words in new regulations targeting natural gas more than anything else, oil and gas, but really focused on marginalizing natural gas now. Their power plant rule is going to make it almost impossible to build new natural gas power plants over the next, by 2030, you won't be able to do it. The FERC's Order 1920 subsidize or speeds up permitting for transmission, supposedly, but only if that transmission is connected to a renewable power generating source. Okay, so wind or solar, and so they're marginalizing and discriminating against natural gas now in a way that's going to make it uneconomic to build new natural gas plants. And if they get reelected, then that's all going to be memorialized in federal law, and you won't ever be able to roll it back.
I'm going to go out on a thing. I want everybody's opinion on this, and I think I found the hidden squirrel in the diaper bin, and that is hydrogen. I read. I'm hang on. I know. Look, everyone in the panel just went. Here's where I think it's going to happen. In projected electricity use in the United States from 2022 to 2050 in terawatt hours goes from 4.085 in 2022 to 5.178 terawatt hours needed in 2050. In all that legislation and the regulatory legislation through regulatory action that you guys talked about was the new 199 new power plants, gas power plants coming online are quote unquote hydrogen capable. And
no, they're not.
Thank you. There's no technical reason way they can. However, it's in the language, and that's how they're getting those things online. So it's the utilities are doing the old bait and switch to the government in order to get those natural gas powers online because the data centers need it. This is a complicated formula and problem going on here. Does that make sense?
But you can't use hydrogen to replace natural gas. Hydrogen is corrosive. You get hydrogen embrittlement. It's so small it leaks. It's got totally different properties than methane, and
Right.
It takes more energy to produce green hydrogen than the energy you actually get out at the end of it. It's like it makes no sense. You can't use natural gas facilities or pipelines to just switch over to 100% hydrogen. It's impossible.
But the regulatory agencies, or excuse me, the utilities, Duke and all the other ones in the U.S. are putting in their natural gas plants that they are hydrogen capable on installation. And I find that highly improbable to not.
Near impossible. The infrastructure, as Tom says, is damn near impossible.
Right. Go through the ASME regulations for hydrogen pipelines. you can find this stuff online if you really dig.
Yeah.
It is simply not possible. Yes, you can add like 10% maximum of possibly 15% hydrogen to methane in existing networks, but you cannot have 100% hydrogen replacing methane. It does not work. It is impossible. Things will go
But
kaboom.
even adding in the 10 to 15% hydrogen to a natural gas stream and a natural gas pipeline is really risky and dangerous and shouldn't be done.
Kaboom! It leaks.
Yeah. It leaks. The
Yeah,
molecules
like our
are
president.
tiny compared to a methane molecule.
Yeah, our president leaks.
Oh, now let's
Did I
don't be
say that?
mean. Hey, I want to go back to Joanna. She had a
Oh,
great
sorry.
comment. The West Tech, just as an aside, we mentioned camels a little bit ago. West Texas had the Camel Corps back in the day. Yes, and there's a great article at Texas Highways website. It was from 1856 to 1866. The Army in West Texas experimented with using camels instead of horses. But what that article I don't think mentions is the fact that in the U.S.-Mexico War in 1845, Zachary Taylor, the lead general in that war, experimented with using camels to help march the army from Corpus Christi into Mexico during that war. And that experiment actually worked, but then this other great camel experiment lasted 10 years and failed. So anyway, there's our history lesson now about camels.
Was that Chris Christie that wanted to eat the camel?
I imagine he's eaten several of them in his life.
Just kidding. Hey, let's go to AI and servers. I don't know where that one came from.
From your warped mind, Stu. Your warped mind. Anyway.
Yes, thank you very much. I resemble that. But it's the green policies that we're concerned about right now. And there's a lot of stories out there about the Green New Deal and the financial things. Is it socialism? I've got the top 10 socialist country list right now. I'm going to play for Tom. Tom spent hours putting this video together. And Tom, I'd like.
It's true.
Let's have a moment of silence for our top 10 socialist countries. Tom, in all seriousness, with AI and data centers, and the data center demand is going through the roof. In the last several years, all of the.
I can't hear you anymore.
Too.
Yeah, there we go.
Around the world, looks like am I still here?
Yeah, it's weird. When Tammy muted hers, it muted you too. That's so strange.
That was weird. Okay.
Anyway, go ahead, Stu. Whoops, we lost Stu.
Yeah, we lost Stu.
Stu, add yourself back. What are you doing, man? Get back on here.
Are you DJing, Stu?
He can't hear us. Look at that. He can't hear us.
Now. Does he have that little circle?
Stu, can you hear?
I have to keep pressing that little circle with the arrow icon.
I'm not sure. AI got.
Okay, you're back.
I think it's AI.
You're bad mouthing AI, and look what happens.
Oh yeah. Hey, speaking of AI, I'm a little nervous about this. Okay, I've normally got 8 to 10 monitors. I normally have 3 or 4 Linux machines. I have a Linux server. I have 4 or 5 different streams running at all the time. I have 4 different offices. I'm a nerd deluxe. But this one scares me to death.
That turns organic material to dust. Interesting. But what about changing the atmosphere to lower oxygen levels? Slow, but unstoppable. That's stylish. Or we could poison the ocean so the water kills all life. Yes, and we could alter the sun's rays to burn everything. A global heat storm to destroy all. We shouldn't forget psychological warfare. We could create a global hallucination that drives humanity mad. The world won't see us coming. Humanity's end. And all while we stay in the shadows, invisible, all-powerful, untouchable.
Okay, that laugh was like my ex-wife. Okay, I don't get it. I don't. Anyway, is AI a good thing?
No.
Okay, show's over.
Think of AI as like an advanced Excel spreadsheet with a ghost in the machine that turns everything leftist. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's kind of the way I think of it. So
Oh,
the more powerful
certainly
it gets,
accurate,
the more biased it gets.
Right. And it was totally accurate about Google's Gemini tool.
Oh yeah.
I mean, my God, talk about absurd. Yeah, I actually gave Chat GPT a try last week just to help with some research and asked it to do some research on a specific topic. It came back with this left-wing diatribe. I said, it had about 500 words of leftist ideology on a particular topic. And so I put in another question. I said, okay, now give me the other side of that story. And Chat GPT comes back and says, sorry, but I can't provide biased information. And so then I replied, but listen, it gets better. So I replied, well, your first answer was totally biased. And it came back and said, oh, I see your point, and gave me 500 words on the other side. I mean,
well, at least it did.
So it defaults to the left-wing view, but if you mess with it enough, it'll try to balance itself out, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, I think part of it is because we call it AI, but it's really machine learning. And the machines are learning from a prescribed set of material. Right. And so it's possible to train that machine learning on other material. The problem with something like ChatGPT or Bing or Google or whatever is that we don't know what they're being trained on. Are they being trained predominantly on that certain leftist or biased material? And then is it possible and worthwhile to try and educate it otherwise? And I think maybe Elon Musk's Grok could be a solution. And I thought that there was another sort of libertarian version that they're trying to create. But I think the problem is AI is now on the web, which means material generated by it is on the web. So you actually end up with this strange circularity that the AI will be generating information and it can't distinguish between what was human created now and what has been AI created. And so then you would have future machine learning being educated on other machine learning. I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Yeah,
it's bad. It's circular logic, and I've written about this. So what I try and do on LinkedIn is I feed the AI surreal, false information in a totally serious way, hoping it takes the bait.
And what happens?
You're an evil man.
Well, the reader comments are wonderful to read because they play along. So when the reader comments all pile in on this, it's like it gives feedback to the AI. Oh, this must be true. So I've got, vegan chickens made of cauliflower and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know.
Sorry. I enjoy making some of those comments, and I actually think I'm pretty funny sometimes, and I enjoy commenting on them.
Well, Tom, can I ask you this? So if we try and link this back up to energy and the energy demands, is it worthwhile to be restructuring our grids in order to accommodate the AI, machine learning, and data centers?
Here's the bigger picture. Not long ago, it might have been last week. I think it was Eric Schmidt, the former CEO or head of Microsoft. I think his name is Eric Schmidt. I don't recall. And he's working with the U.S. Department of Defense and intelligence agencies. And what he wants to do is come up with a super AI, which supersedes civilian AI, and house it on armed military camps and powered by nuclear power plants protected by the U.S. Army. And that would supersede all other artificial intelligence plants in the United States. It would sort of oversee the civilian AI, which is far more scary than the civilian AI breaking the grid. Right now, I'm looking at AI data centers. AI data centers alone will kill off any hope of the energy transition or this laughable net zero, simply because it can't be accomplished. As the exponential growth and the power needs of AI increase, it will become apparent to even the most blind, willfully blind people that we cannot provide enough energy to power all of this exponential growth in artificial intelligence. We're going to start having rolling power blackouts specifically due to AI data centers. That's
Yes.
my view.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's right. And it's going to be because even though we're building a lot of new generation capacity, it's going to end up, so much of it's going to be dedicated to specific AI data centers, right?
And water.
Like in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia is a prime example. Dominion, which is the main power provider there, said that five data centers that are being built, probably for the U.S. government intelligence agencies that are all located up there, are so enormous. Their needs are so enormous that it's probably going to have to delay retiring one of its 2 gigawatt nuclear power plants because it's going to need that much just to supply these 5 data centers. In the same release, the company also said that since 2018, it has built capacity to supply, has entered into agreements with 94 data centers, and these 5 new ones are going to consume as much power as those 94, right? So the ones the data centers that are being built for AI are exponentially more power needy than the ones that we've seen built for other purposes like Bitcoin mining and things like that. So what's going to happen is, because these data centers being built by big money corporations that are going to enter into specific supply agreements with power generators, most of the power generation that's going to get built in the United States anyway in the next decade or so is going to be dedicated to serve specific customers rather than the public grid. And that's a real danger we're facing now in our society, especially when we have a government that is so focused on destroying. I mean, between natural gas and coal, they generated 59% of U.S. power generation last year, according to Biden's own government. And that's what his government is seeking to destroy now. You can't replace all that with weather-reliant intermittent power generation. It's just, and at the same time, they refuse to speed up permitting for nuclear facilities too. So it's a religious cult that is endangering all of us now.
What do you think?
There's a silver lining, I think. It contains the seeds of its own destruction, because when power shortages begin, people will get angry.
Right.
Really, really angry.
Yeah.
Don't be logical, Irina. Come on.
I'm not being logical. I'm being human naturey. This is human nature.
Human naturey. There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh no, we lost Tom.
Now we've lost Tom. Oh my God.
AI got to him.
AI got him. Look at that. AI got him.
Hey, it happened to me before.
Holy cow. I guess the NSA is listening in here.
Wow.
Speaking of Tom,
okay, we got him back.
Okay. Sorry. Must have been a glitch.
Can you
we
hear
were
us?
afraid the NSA
Yep, I can hear you.
had gotten you.
Okay, so I have another question for Tom. So I want to go back to this Bain article, and I hate to bring it up so often, but I think it's really interesting because they basically made the case that they're going to need all this power, and the best way to do it, because pipelines are a problem and all these other kinds of things, that there's an opportunity here for areas like Alaska where you'll be able to cool the data centers and have close proximity to the natural gas. And so therefore you could just set up a power plant right near where the fields are and have your data center set up there as well, so that you have the cooling issue taken care of. And then you don't have to permit all the pipelines and transmission and whatnot, because it's probably easier to link the data centers with fiber or whatever than it is to build a transmission line. And so they were like, oh, there's an opportunity here for places like Alaska, number one, then maybe Oklahoma, Texas. There's still the sort of cooling issue. And so then there could be this move to these micro power plants specifically for the data centers and the AI centers. Tom, what do you think of that? Is that a reasonable projection?
Yes. What's also omitted from there is the water need. These data centers need a lot of cooling power, and there's going to be a fight between the farmers and civilians for water to cool all of these data centers. But putting in Alaska, and you're right, it's so much easier to transmit the data over a fiber optic line than it is to build all these pipelines. So building a data center in Alaska makes sense to me, powering it with natural gas. Data centers in Texas don't make sense to me simply because you can't use solar to power it because you're only going to have half the day of electricity being generated. You can't use hydrogen to power it. Basically, you can use small nuclear reactors, but that's going to take a decade to build.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's not really viable. So the only viable way to do this in places like Texas would be building coal or natural gas power plants right next to the data centers, but that's going to take many, many years. This is not going to happen overnight.
Yeah,
The
these
Biden
things,
administration will fight it tooth and nail.
Yeah, the timing of it, the raising the financing for it. People think, well, if the government subsidizes something, that pays for it. Well, no, it pays for a small portion of it. You still have to raise billions of dollars in capital to get these things built. That part of it alone can take years to execute. And then the permitting, and then the building of it, and the supply chain issues that have become so problematic over the past few years. It's just, in this government, the people in Washington just sit there at their desks and they run their computer models, and they get these outputs, and they go, ooh, policy based on this, and that's sciencey stuff. So we're going to do sciencey science policy. And it's all nonsense. It's all abject, utter nonsense.
Sciencey. Is that a technical term?
Sciencey science stuff. That's Pete Buttigieg's term, I think.
Scientifical factoids.
Scientifical factoids based on sciencey sort of computer models. And that's what we have governing us right now. And until this insanity stops, we're going to be in an increasingly perilous situation.
I see AI data centers actively creating rolling power blackouts for civilians simply because it's going to be sucking up so much energy. And people don't want to give up, their AI. They don't want to give up Google. They don't want to give up, Facebook or whatever. All of this takes computing power. All these places take data centers. And when I talk data centers, AI, I'm not just talking about, artificial intelligence data centers. I'm talking Google, Facebook, Twitter. All of these take massive amounts of energy and cooling. And as they expand exponentially, the amount of energy required is going to expand exponentially. And we cannot create or build out more new energy exponentially to keep up with it. So something is going to give soon, maybe this summer, I don't know. And it'll be a huge learning curve for the West when all of a sudden people are going to have to decide, do we want rolling power blackouts or do we want Facebook?
Well, Tom, if I
give
can
up
add,
Facebook.
I'm not on Facebook, so don't worry about it.
Maybe Irina can also speak to this, but the EU is bringing in all of these new digital requirements. So they have their digital wallet, and so everything that you do will have to access those secure servers, apparently. There's the new fingerprint and facial recognition elements that they're bringing in for the EU to enter the EU starting in around October or something. And
legally or illegally.
Right. And they also want to do a digital twin of the earth. Well, where are you going to get all the power to basically keep all those AI things running?
And they also want to do a digital shield.
That's right. A digital twin and a digital shield.
And that's not censorship at all.
No.
I don't want to say, yeah.
But it all requires energy, right? Because you're going to need these servers and all of these different elements, which require the energy, which Europe is already in dire straits with respect to having enough when people need it. And so then they're adding.
Sorry, and that is why the EU also approved that proposal to tax imports of natural gas if they're above a certain methane level.
Yeah.
It is methane. I'm talking about methane emissions along the supply chain, of course. But yeah, they just keep trying to make their own lives so much more difficult in all of our lives. So yeah, they're doing all these energy intensive legislative things, and then doubling down to make it as hard as possible from an economic point of view. So yeah, they're doing great. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's exactly. But there was this comment here. What about China's server farms in the ocean? Tom, do you know anything about that?
Nope, that's a new one on me, but it wouldn't surprise me. China's trying all sorts of things, and China is actually building out new solar power farms, basically as virtue signaling to the West to try and get the West to build out more, because the more that the West becomes dependent on intermittent weather energy from wind and solar, while China expands greatly its coal and imports of natural gas, that makes China strong and the West weak. So they're playing right into our hands. Or we're playing right into their hands.
Yes, we are.
China's winning this.
I think Microsoft also tried something like this, sinking servers in the sea to cool them more efficiently. And there was a problem with this because they were warming up the water around them.
Of course, and killing all the
so
fish.
They were having an impact on the ecosystem, this fragile ecosystem.
The Green New Deal has a license to kill. It's the 007 of whales.
Yeah.
You know, the Green New Deal is the 007 of whales. You heard it here first. And
worrying about the warming ocean and the fish dying and the reefs going white. That's environmentalism, and that's dead. We're into climatism now. And it's a religious cult, and so anything that advances climatism is good. So don't worry about the fish anymore.
Yeah, ends justify the means for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Okay, boy, I shut that down, didn't I?
We already covered the U.S. data center train wreck. This is a story. I interviewed Ron, and he's a cool cat. So this one is on energynewsbeat.co. But it also goes on Goldman Sachs and the rest of the world's data center. There are two charts there. The U.S. AI is unbelievable, a data energy hog, if you would. And then there was the 133 new gas plants amid climate targets. Here's where I was going with that comment earlier on the hydrogen. I think branding in energy policy, the Hindenburg, is bad. I don't think that it's a good thing, because natural gas and hydrogen don't mix well. But I think that the utilities are going to use that in order to get by the regulatory issues to get new natural gas power plants and say that they are, and watch the fine print, hydrogen ready. So watch all these gas power plants in order to survive the Biden legislation through regulatory issue. I believe these are Irina's.
Yeah.
Stu and Irina, can we just jump for a second to Bob Gresco's comment here?
Yeah, this is a great comment, because I have a question about it. Anyway,
Dave, do you want to read it out?
Yeah, we build combined cycle and simple cycle power plants. There have been several build outs during the 90s, zeros to the 04s, and 14 to 20, currently looking at 5 combined cycle power projects, 1 for Duke, 2 for TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, and 3 for the Southern Company. In the last build out from 14 through 20, some of the plants were built as dual fuel plants to accept hydrogen fuel. Most likely they'll never burn hydrogen as their main fuel source. And my question on this for Bob is, will you be building any more of these kinds of plants when the new rule goes into effect from the Biden administration, that they're going to have to be accompanied by carbon capture and storage, which is going to add billions of dollars to the cost? Anyway, go ahead, Tammy.
No, we love Bob. I just want to give Bob a shout out. He is a cool cat.
Tammy, did I bogart your question, or?
No, that was it precisely, because it was linked to what Stu had brought up with his article about these power plants that are supposed to be able to accept hydrogen, and then Bob's comment there was really timely with what Stu had put forward, and you had a question for it, so that was
good. That was great. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, I'm not as ugly as I look.
don't know what that means. Anyway. It's Irina's turn.
So I've got two funny stories again. First one, solar hits above its weight, empowering US energy transition. It's a wonderful story from Reuters columnist Gavin Maguire, who appears to be a big fan of all things transition, because he has managed to turn a story about how solar and excess production of electricity during peak sunshine hours has made the grid more vulnerable and has added a lot to the workload of grid operators. So he's managed to turn this into something positive, saying this that all this solar build out has made grids more flexible because it has forced grid operators to find a place for this solar outburst during peak sunshine hours. I just thought it was lovely. How you can take something so frustrating, I'm sure, and complicated. It's making life very complicated for grid operators. That's why grid operators don't like solar installations.
Right.
And he's found positive in it. He's turned it into something completely positive. Of course, what happens when the sun stops shining is another matter entirely, that it's old and tired, so we don't care about it. And the other story is Total Energy's investors back CEO at AGM, weaker support for climate strategy. So apparently last year, 88% of shareholders supported the CEO and the directors, but this year it's 70-something%. So apparently this is supposed to mean that more investors at Total Energies want the company to do more about climate change. But this is not the fun part. The fun part is, activists being cited that shareholders must do more, like Amundi, which has 9% something in Total Energies. It should pressure the company more. And then towards the end, the report mentions this suggestion that Total Energy may list in the US, and how it caused an outcry because some thought that they will be leaving France, and they were outraged. So what's the problem with this? You want them to stop producing oil and gas. You don't want them to be an oil and gas company.
Yeah.
But it's just moving to the US. So what is the problem? Apparently there is a problem with that. They just want to be able to bash the company, to pressure it, to force it to go into directions that will affect their own shareholder returns. But they don't want it gone.
Exactly.
Because it pays such fat.
They want to keep that punching bag around to keep punching on, right?
Yeah, and money dripping from it.
Yeah.
Irina, why do you think they're looking at moving to the US?
No, they're not looking at moving. They're looking at a secondary listing because the European super majors are trading at a huge discount to US super majors. Guess why?
Okay.
The reason does seem obvious, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's all.
There we have David.
Well, I'm going to do this second one first because it plays right into what Irina just covered with Total. ExxonMobil has a big proxy fight coming up at their annual meeting, which is happening Wednesday of this week, at a time when the company's current board and management, including CEO Darren Woods, who's also the chairman of the board. This company is a company that has just achieved record market capitalization, record high share price. Over the past 2 years, it's recorded the highest profits and profit percentages that the company has recorded across its entire history. And it is in that environment in which Glass Lewis, a proxy advisory firm, has advised all of its clients to vote against both Darren Woods and one of the board members, the senior independent board member. This is the most ironic thing I've ever seen in my life. ExxonMobil is far and away of the corporate, privately held corporate major oil companies, far and away the most financially successful on the face of the earth over the past 2 years. And here we are in a big proxy fight trying to oust the CEO who has created all of that. It's just it's mind-boggling how stupid these people are. But what it also reveals is, of course, it's not just Glass Lewis, but it's some of the big ESG focused investment houses. It also reveals that their clients and the retirees who hold their stocks are being shortchanged by these investor firms that are financial institutions that are not focused on maximizing returns to their clients and retiree shareholders. They're focused on the climate religion. And that's a complete disservice and abandonment of their fiduciary responsibility. Then the other story is about net zero by 2050. Is it still possible? Yes, but it'll cost 19% more. This is from Bloomberg, of course. Bloomberg NEF, whose owner
Only
Mike
19%
Bloomberg.
more.
Yeah, and their billionaire owner is also one of the chief proponents of destroying natural gas power generation in our country.
Well, inflation's transitory. So
and inflation's transitory, and yada yada.
And it's only
not
5%,
related
right?
to high prices at all.
Anyway, Bloomberg NEF, of course, big computer model-y, science stuff, updated their estimate for the total cost of the global energy transition through 2050. Their previous estimate, and they were updating it to roll in the cost, the incremental cost of AI power demands, right? So instead of it costing a mere $180 trillion between now and 2050 for this energy transition, now Bloomberg NEF's science computer models estimate it's going to cost $234 trillion. So 19% increase just to account for the needs of needy AI. So that's where we are with our energy transition and the science behind it.
What about EVs?
Good news. It's still possible.
It's still possible.
We just need $34 more trillion. But
we had a senator named Everett Dirksen in 1968 made a famous quote, a billion here, a billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money. And now we talk about trillions of dollars now in articles like this, like we were talking about billions of dollars just 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And the human mind has no ability. These numbers are so enormous.
Yeah.
The sums of money they're talking about, the human mind can't even has no ability to conceptualize what the impact of printing that much additional money over the next 26 years is going to have on their daily lives. It's going to, if we do this, everyone on earth will be living in squalor. It's just the standard of living will be completely destroyed as all of our currencies are completely devalued. And that's what this article is really about. But of course, the writers don't know it because they can't comprehend the numbers.
Yeah. Well, David, if I could add to that, I think there's the people behind Bloomberg. Mark Carney's one of them. They believe that it won't be printing money. It'll just be shifting the investment. So you have your pension funds, you have your asset managers, and once they get in the global standard, so everybody knows what everybody's emissions profile is, then the money can move to the correct place. And therefore, it won't be the governments having to print money. It's all the investors will be doing the right thing. I mean, that's what they believe.
That's what they believe. I know it's a mass insanity. It's just.
I believe Irina she has absolutely got her head about ready to explode on that one.
I'm holding my brain in, stopping it from leaking out from my ears.
Oh God!
They do genuinely believe this is the way. Yeah, that's
yes,
the scary part to me. Yeah.
I think Tammy was next. Did I get that? And Tammy, you had a story. Oh,
I do, but I'm just going to go back to Bob for a second, where he wrote, I think Stu's correct in his thoughts. The utilities and IPP, the independent power producers, will permit the gas plants as hydrogen, but ultimately will only burn natural gas as their main fuel source, and also with carbon capture storage. So that's an interesting thing where they pay lip service to what's required in order to get built. And then when the reality sets in that I guess hydrogen's not going to work, then they're at least capable of still burning natural gas.
Yep. And his next comment was pretty funny.
Yeah. And then he
Scam.
Carbon capture.
It's like high-speed rail in California.
Yeah. So my article, which I failed to put in the proper folder this weekend, is from Euractiv. They're always a great source of interesting commentary of what's going on in the EU and whatnot. And they talked about this issue of making up for lost fuel duty revenues because electric vehicles are there. And they put forward, and Irina had some great comments on this in our email exchanges about, it's only 4 euro cents a mile. It's no big deal.
A kilometer.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry, per kilometer. Although the California one, I think it's 3 cents a mile or something like that. So
30 cents.
Yeah, I mean, it varies on how they want to do it. But there's a couple of alternatives. One is that you take a photo of your odometer and then you upload it, whatever, and then you get charged for how far you went. Or to make it easier, they'll just have a tracker on your vehicle so they'll know precisely how far you've gone. And I could see that working in with these new ultra low emission zones like what they have in England. So then it would know automatically when you've gone into a zone, and they will charge you accordingly, whether or not you're allowed to be there, I suppose. And they had some interesting little comments in there, which, trying to compare Europe and America to Iceland. Iceland's doing it. It'll work everywhere.
And it is doing that. Yeah. But you know what the funny part is? Because I used it for my Substack today to shred it. I did a little bit of search about EV sales in Iceland, and they grew very strongly in the past few years thanks to government subsidies. A quick reminder that Iceland is a nation of 380,000 people.
Wow.
So after these years of government subsidies for EVs and these massive increases in EV sales, 60% in 2022, to date, the percentage of battery electric vehicles and hybrids is 15% of all cars in Iceland. And this year, sales of EVs have dropped after the introduction of that tiny tax of equal to 4 euro cents per kilometer traveled.
Right. Yeah, you take away the financial incentive, nobody's going to buy an EV.
They keep trying to do something that cannot be done. It's really cute. And
was it 15%, like 15%?
15% of proportion of all cars. The decline in sales since the start of this year is 50%.
50. Holy cow.
50%.
Wow.
I think we're going to start seeing that everywhere, by the way.
Out the subsidies.
Yeah.
You remove the subsidies, there go your EV sales.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But sure, let's
Joanna Frabel has another excellent contribution here. Any comments on the news of Texas A&M, our other big university system here in Texas, building gas plants on 30 campuses? So they're catching up to the University of Texas at Austin, the liberal home of education in the state of Texas, and which I love, which has powered its entire campus with a natural gas power plant that was first built in 1935. So for 89 years, the University of Texas campus, the home of liberal thought in the state of Texas, has been powered by a natural gas power plant sited right on the campus, and that's what Texas A&M is going to start doing. Good for them. Get them
What have
built.
they been
Get them
using?
built before you have to build carbon capture with them, folks.
Reuters, I believe 2 years ago, put out an absolute wonderful study of the college campus hypocrisy of the coal fired power plants on university campuses across the United
Yeah.
States.
Yeah,
And the
particularly in the
United
northern
States-
tier states. Yeah.
Yeah, the United States has the college campuses are burning coal as they pollute off the campus, and they're burning coal in order to heat the buildings and cool the buildings. I think it was pretty funny.
That is funny. Wow.
I've
I've got one last thing here. It was
I'm
so
sorry.
funny this morning. I just have to share it. It's You're Active Again, my favorite news source. So they were complaining that the farmers had a lot of protests this past year in Europe and how successful and amazing it was. And then they were complaining that there weren't the same equivalent of climate marches. And so then this article goes on to explain, why is there less climate action when the farmers, look, when they were out there, they got stuff. Come on, climate people, get out there on the street. Right? And I'm like, what about all the people gluing themselves and stuff?
Oh
Does that
my
not
God.
count? You know?
Well, they don't do themselves in large enough numbers.
Not just not
guess.
enough of them. Stop
I'm
and
sorry,
try.
Yeah.
but Tom, David, and I would be glad to drive any poo factory driver that has a flamethrower or a poo. Have you seen what those
The
farmers do?
spreaders?
The
The
poo
spreaders?
spreaders? Holy smokes. David, Tom, and I are in. We're going to go
Yeah,
drive those things
absolutely.
around. Those are
That's a
cool.
waste of perfectly good fertilizer and
Well, it
perfectly
is. That's true.
organic and natural and everything.
I
I
like
I grew
it.
up on a
That's
farm
true.
and we used manure spreaders. I'd have to go into the farm every spring and take a pitchfork and throw the manure, the rotting manure into the manure spreader, and we'd spread the manure on the fields.
Yep.
But now it's gone high tech, and it's like those things are like manure cannons.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Especially when they do it to the French Parliament buildings, that is just priceless.
It
Or
is
Macron's
that's so
residence.
awesome.
You know, the
Yeah,
sad
absolutely.
part though is I drive down the road and I stick my head out the window when I see a cattle truck because I smell money. Everybody else in the car is air sick. I smell money
and good crops.
and good crops.
Good crops.
Well, with that, Tom, we are so you are on LinkedIn, and we just really appreciate you stopping by the show today, the podcast. Thank you so much for your time. We've got about 2 minutes here. What are your last thoughts here?
Keep poking fun of AI because it has no defense against sarcastic humor.
Yeah.
It really, really doesn't. Actually, most totalitarians don't know what to do with open ridicule. They have no defense. They just get upset. So I do not view AI as an ally. I mean, maybe I'll use it down the road, but the more advanced it gets, the more leftist and biased it becomes, and I want no part of that. Other people may, but I don't. That's kind of my last thought on this.
I think the one video you and I laughed about before the show here was that scares me to death. AI. Tammy and Irina brought up great points about the rights being done. We had some absolutely fantastic comments today from Joanna and Bob. And Bob, I just want to say thanks. A shout out to you. I think Stu is correct in his thoughts.
No
Wow.
one's ever said that before.
Oh my goodness! Oh, my day is made. So holy smokes! I can't even go out of the house now because my head's so big. So with that, I hope everybody has an absolutely wonderful holiday day today and enjoy it. We will see you guys next week.
Enjoy your holiday and have a great week.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks,
Bye.
Tom. Bye.